We have a group of, a panel of experts that are going to take us through this meeting this morning. And it will be coordinated, moderated by our very own board member and founder of Sunbelt Holdings, that is Kevin Wava. We also have Vivian Ddambya from NITA that will be on the panel. We have James Byaruhanga from Raxio, and we have the ICT Association of Uganda, Elizabeth Ntege, and the Ministry of Finance, we have Moses Bekabye. So those are the panel of experts that are going to take us through this discussion. You can also follow us on Twitter using a hashtag #GrowBusinessUganda, and also at AmCham Uganda, that is our Twitter handle. So please feel free to tag us every time you're posting this. Now, I would like to invite James to give a few remarks. Oh, Mike is here. Our president is here. Hello, Mike. Would you like to say a few words before we hand over to James? And James will hand over to the moderator, yes, Kevin. Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the AmCham lockdown version of Breakfast and Discussions. Please be careful, be safe. This new Delta variant is no joke. Many people who've had been vaccinated even twice are still getting it. So hopefully you're still being safe, even if you've been vaccinated, etc. As it continues to spread around the globe, especially this new Delta variant, some of our members are going to continue to suffer. Business is what it is. I know we have to make our way through it. And the measures taken by the government to contain the spread have appear to work. Is slowing down in Uganda, but globally it's speeding up because of just the desire to get back to business and to get back to life. But today what we're going to be discussing is how to keep the lights on in a global pandemic. Our panelists will take you through the economic recession and how it's affected our businesses and how we can get back to working differently, working from home, working from the office, however we choose. Life has to go on. So AmCham is continuing more forward with our virtual sessions. We are looking forward to having in-person sessions in the future. So thank you for joining. Thank you, Raxio and James, for hosting, and we appreciate this very much. So thank you, and James, it's on to you.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Anne. Morning, everyone. My name is James Byaruhanga from Raxio Data Centre. We're hosting today's webinar. Initially, we had hoped this was going to be in person. Obviously, we all miss being able to interact and socialize in person, enjoy a few bites together, some coffee. But unfortunately, it is what it is right now, and we're not able to, have contact events. However, it also makes a perfect, topic for conversation today, which is basically this doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon, and even the countries that seem to be really opening up. One, first of all, you can't trade on your own. You have to trade with the rest of the world, and secondly, you have to realize that, of course, the mutation of the virus continues everywhere, and vaccination cannot be as fast as it should be in some of the economies. For example, our economy, but the show must go on. So when we were thinking about the topic that we thought would be relevant, as well as working with AmCham to discuss which panelists we thought would be able to deliver the right kind of messaging, we were thinking more along the lines of both the public and the private sector, as well as the associations that kind of bridge the gap between them, and how they're able to play their different roles for the entire ecosystem to be able to work. So we thought it would be a nice conversation to have around what's happening around public policy, what's happening in the private sector, what are the different catalysts that are being mixed up everywhere to be able to allow things to continue to move, and basically how do we in our different capacities be able to stay afloat. I think last year's lockdown was right at the back end of Christmas. It was in March. A lot of people had a lot of hopes and dreams. Of course, that didn't come to realization. We also saw a few people pivoting very heavily and managing to come out bigger than the others when things seem to ease up later in the year and earlier this year, with, of course, also the political situation happening. I mean, there was very little business that could be conducted, and bang, the second lockdown has come through, and this one caught everyone pretty much more off guard than the first one, despite the fact that we had already been aware that COVID was around. So we're seeing a situation where the country has a lot more resources floating around. There's very little money in the economy. The budget has been slashed significantly, as we shall probably hear from Moses. Public sector is struggling, private sector is struggling. Regional trade is really on its lowest, I think, since time memorial. Global trade is struggling. The Western world is opening up a lot faster than us. And we're finding ourselves in a very interesting situation where the Revenue Authority needs to collect, but we don't have anything to give them. So I think it's a nice stage to sort of brainstorm through the panel, through the questions that you guys will ask, and basically learn from each other and be able to see, how we can basically stay afloat. Because, one person, okay, it doesn't help everyone else. Many people, okay, somehow, makes everything work. So I'm really psyched and excited about this conversation today. I like this panel we've got. I see a lot of friends in the participants group, and I think it's going to be a nice buzzing experience. So hopefully our next time we host shall be, to be more physical. But for now, we just kind of need to live with what we have. Stay safe, guys, and let's keep our family safe as well. In Raxio, we say to Wale COVID, it's our campaign, and I would like to pass the same message to you guys, Wale COVID. Thanks.
Thanks, James. This is Henry Kevin Wava. I'm the moderator today. So Vivian, I wanted to introduce Vivian, our first panelist, who will go first and basically help us to understand some of the questions. Again, today's theme is keeping the lights on in a global pandemic. How does business stay afloat? Vivian, I have 2 questions for you that I'd like you to make an introduction to the group. And then also, if you can help us highlight these 2 questions. What is the importance of the local content in line with the Data Protection and Privacy Act? And what is the importance of the data sovereignty and keeping data in the country? And how has government IT functions managed to keep the public sector operating effectively during this lockdown? I would like us to help us understand what you guys are doing on that side. Vivian, over to you.
Thank you very much, Henry. I'll start with introducing myself. I'm Ddambya Vivian. I'm the Director for Technical Services at the National IT Authority of Uganda. There's another one in Ghana. That is government speak for Chief Technical Officer. So I'm in charge of government infrastructure. We currently manage a very widespread fiber backbone. We're about 4,000 kilometers, above 4,000 kilometers today. We manage the National Data Centre. And basically, I do this and that about taking government services online. So that's about me. But on the issue of local content, so basically, I'll start by sort of defining what local content is. And it is basically data we produce within our geographical boundaries. And so why is it important? It's important because it pertains to us. An example, and a silly example, would be Ugandan jokes. They are ours alone. Ugandan memes we are the ones who understand them, and they are funny to us. But we could also possibly export them to Kenyans. And that exportation could possibly make us money. So our local content can be used, one, to make us money, but it also pertains to our culture. During this lockdown, a number of kids watched Peppa Pig, and now we have a whole generation that has a British accent. So what if we had a Peppa Pig that spoke Ruchiga and told tales of hardworking Ruchiga? therein lies our local content. So we need to build local content, content that talks to us. And basically, your question was, why is it important to us? And exactly that. That is why it is important to us. And now when we look at it, as I said, it is data within our geographical boundaries. So therefore, what do we mean by data sovereignty? That is the idea that that data is subject to the laws and governance structure within the nation that it is collected. So data is the new gold. So in giving away our data to whoever is asking for it, we are giving away our gold. So therefore, as a country, we need to manage the way we share our data with others, that is internally and externally of our boundaries. The Data Protection Act requires that preferably all personal data is hosted in Uganda. And if it's hosted outside Uganda, then that country must have similar protection as provided for in the Data Protection Act. And the burden of proof is on the organization. Now, some other organizations have gone ahead and said, and removed the preferably. Regulators have said, no, all data should be hosted within the country. Therefore, it is easier if your data is stored within Uganda's boundaries. It helps you to comply with the Data Protection and Privacy Act. And this act helps provide assurance for the data subjects on their right to privacy, and also that the organizations can be held accountable in the case of any personal data breaches or unlawful use. That is why, as a government, we are saying that data, especially personal data, security data, data that pertains to our economy, should be stored within the geographical boundaries of our country. What have we done about that? Government has built a national data center, and now we are happy that the private sector has also joined to build data centers such as Raxio. And this is a good thing, one, for our economy, two, for ensuring that we are keeping our gold and that nobody is coming to basically manage it away from us.
I don't know if there's any follow-up question, but I would like to jump into the next panelist, James, leading into that same question. James from Raxio Data Centre would be the next panelist. James, I would like you to do a brief, you've already done a brief intro, but more or less on your company and also the role of data centers like Raxio is playing to enable the economy to this business environment that we are struggling in to stay afloat. And what does it feel like the role of cloud computing to compete and grow during these tough economic times have resulted from COVID-19. So James, I'd like you to highlight us on those key issues and help us understand better your role and how you're helping our economy, our people, government, private sector, and how we can benefit from this.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So initially, I didn't actually introduce Raxio and what we do. So I'm currently the general manager for Raxio Data Centre. We're a private data center in Namave Industrial Park. I think Vivian has sort of given you a bit of a hint on what data centers do. But we are a pure play data center and private facing. Obviously, we are also exploring opportunities around integration with the public sector through the NITA data center and the national backbone, which we already have present at Raxio. Also, the integration of the internet exchange point into Raxio, as well as being able to deliver this to the customers. So data centers in general really play as a hosting environment for data. Vivian tipped about the new gold and us protecting our gold, which is basically data, keeping data in country. Obviously, that's one of the key primary roles that data centers help with, providing an environment where we can keep data in country, providing an environment that can provide disaster recovery for enterprises, with them having a primary and secondary location in 2 different sites, which obviously enables business continuity, allowing for cross-connection between enterprises, between cloud providers, between public sector and private sector, between companies and the exchange points that they can peer with directly, service providers, telecoms, submarine cable companies, global content delivery networks, these OTTs, as they call them. Everyone needs a home, and data centers are pretty much the home where all this can converge. What makes data centers exciting is, of course, leveraging the opportunity around shared infrastructure and being able to enjoy the economies of scale that are within the same household, same ecosystem. So at Raxio, we provide very stable power, very efficient cooling, predictable environments for fire suppression and detection, about 10 fiber cables from different players, both public and private, and of course the opportunity to build an ecosystem between all players that are literally sitting within the internet ecosystem. Now, your question is around cloud computing. So one of the things that we've seen really blow up in Uganda has always been the SME sector. So Uganda being one of the countries where SME market really drives the show in terms of innovation, in terms of investment, because we are all, we're all hustling in this country, as we say. So what tends to happen is that you find a lot of SMEs, blossoming from all directions, but technically they're trying to compete with the larger established enterprises and trying to provide the same service. So almost anything you're looking for in Uganda, you're going to hear someone tell you that I know someone who can do it, right? Whether it's real estate that you're trying to purchase, whether it's a house you want to buy or rent, whether it's, even if you're trying to get a hotel room, someone will tell you, I know someone who can do this for you. Because a lot of this, innovation and creativity and sprouting of SMEs. What I think COVID-19 has really thrown into the path of everyone is the fact that in the absence of contact, which was basically the main play, which was being able to meet someone and talk to them and convince them to buy something from anywhere, is that we've been socially distanced and with only one common channel, which is really the online trade. So you find when you go to social media accounts these days, including mine, the one thing that you'll find is everyone is trying to sell something and telling you we deliver it. You can pay by mobile money to this location. And then I'll send you a safe border, I'll send you an Uber border, I'll send you my border guide. We've seen evolution where we have people, young entrepreneurs like the meat guy or the chupa guy. If you want meat, you call the meat guy. If you want drinks, you call the chupa guy. Everyone is kind of evolving. A lot of cottage industry coming up, cosmetics, crafts, everything is being made. But what's really happening is that for them to actually scale and be able to compete and be able to actually stay afloat during this kind of time is they have to embrace online. And embracing of online and being able to integrate with payment platforms, delivery platforms, this is kind of a place where now the strong survive and the weak really kind of fall apart. Now that's the opportunity cloud computing presents, because cloud computing basically allows these small players to be able to pay as they grow, to be able to actually get infrastructure that they couldn't afford on their own, that the big enterprises have been using as a strong competitive advantage. So we've seen a huge amount of growth around online accounting platforms, which people can actually send invoices, send receipts to their customers, send quotations, be able to also integrate into point of sale services that are also sitting online, and all this stuff is sitting, in cloud platforms. A couple of small businesses that I have personally been involved with, so for example, maybe with my wife, one of the key things we're starting to see helping is being able to have these online, sheets where you're keeping track of, how the business is running. But what no one is really thinking about is where are they sitting? What's the back end of where these platforms are sitting, and where you're running your entire business from, which is basically in some kind of cloud. So one of the key tools I would suggest that has really been successful for some people, and I really want to pass on this one for the SME market specifically, would be for SME facing, enterprises, would be adoption of cloud, and also taking an interest to know where your cloud platform is actually sitting, because that helps you about the efficiency of the connectivity to the cloud platform. Obviously, it's in your interest to know your data is safe and secure and protected, but being able to adopt cloud and integrate with enabling players within the cloud space, because obviously cloud is continuously taking over the central space now, and it's important that we know that the cloud we're hosting with is safe, is secure. There's a good element of cybersecurity to protect your information, and also, of course, keep you safe from what you'd say the competitor space.
I want to move over to our third panelist, Elizabeth, who is going to answer, tell us more a bit about ICTAU and what they're doing. Elizabeth, please tell us a little bit about yourself. And also, there are two questions here that are very important to us. How has ICTAU positioned itself to the local landscape as the main source of information for the IT community, given the inconsistency and the strain in the pandemic has put on the information and data? The other one is, how do we expect to see Uganda's enterprises utilize ITC infrastructure, application services to compete in the global marketplace?
Hello, good morning. Thank you, Kevin. Good morning. I hope you can hear me well, everyone.
You're very clear.
Very clear. Thank you so much for inviting me to this panel. Thank you, Raxio, especially James. So just a quick introduction. My name is Elizabeth Ntege. Today I am the current chairperson of the ICTAU Association of Uganda, which is, it really stands for the ICT Association of Uganda. So whose vision obviously is to contribute to Uganda's technological development by organizing key ICT stakeholders under one body and supporting the development of the same for a thriving ICT sector within Uganda. But also in my day job, I am the co-founder and current CEO of NFT Consult, which is a business process outsourcing firm here. And we also have an incubator, an innovation hub called NFT Mawazo. So that's me in a nutshell, slowly. So, and the first question is about how has the association positioned itself on the local landscape, especially in managing communication and data and information. I'll tell you a little bit again about the association. James is also on our board. I'm glad to say he's a member. This was formulated. We came on board earlier this year in February. But our role here and the way the ICTAU has positioned itself is mainly as an umbrella for associations responsible for bringing together ICT associations, organizations, and key ICT stakeholders under one body capable of supporting ICT research, advocacy, and also managing the development of ICT in Uganda. So that is really our main area of focus. And we have a few objectives, and specifically to this title, to this discussion, one of our objectives is to include what we call promoting ICT industry in Uganda, increasing ICT access and adoption of by Ugandans. And our main driver here is to bridge what we call the digital divide. So right now, when we look at the IT and ICT community, we are heavily dependent on, reliant on social media as our main source of information and data, especially now that we are in a pandemic and currently in lockdown. in Uganda. So our source of information and data is coming through social media mostly. So as the association, our mandate really is to follow through with anything that that comes through social media that our members are talking about, you know, and advocate with key ICT stakeholders on any information that puts a strain on our members and their businesses, really, you know. So so mainly we're looking at information that is beneficial on for the promotion of ICT sector within Uganda. And of course, in the past, our pipeline has included discussions around double taxations on BPO services, taxing of taxes around software services, imported software services. The way we've had discussions around abolishing of OTT and the 12% tax. We've also had discussions around provision of equipment in IT equipment in schools, and developing something that James did for us last week or the week before, looking at development of ICT offerings within the current budget. We've had discussions and talking around the Africa Free Trade Agreement. And of course, the one that is still a key and a thorn in our backside is the issue of Facebook and the opening of Facebook. So really, that is how we're addressing the data and communication, because people are mainly dependent on what is happening in the on social media and what is coming out of there, especially now that we're in lockdown. And so our job is to be ahead of that and look at how it affects our members and advocate for anything that could seriously impact their business with the key ICT stakeholders. So when you, the second question was around how do we utilize ICT infrastructure in the application and services, especially enabling Uganda enterprises to compete within the global marketplace, yeah? So one of the things we agreed to, especially when we went into the pandemic, the beginning of 2020, that ICT now became very, very key in our economy, and it is touching all sectors. So our mandate just really grew. And so we know that for our companies to compete in the global market, they need to have plans and strategies around efficiency and effectiveness of solutions around connectivity, data storage, security. And when we talk about security, we're looking at both physical and cyber security, and issues around uptime. So for us to be able to compete, we need to address some of those issues, especially in the global market. Yeah. So we are also cognizant of the fact that digitalization has become an increasing issue now in Uganda. As James mentioned, everything is now online, you know, and so it's key. We're key that we make sure that people understand and our members understand that this is now common. I was speaking to somebody who told me that even the person in the market needs a digital access right now to be able to sell their goods and services. So that is one of the things that that our members now need to recognize. And the fact that we have now, ICT is not now a niche, it's not for the niche people. It is actually what I refer to as a frontline service at the moment. But it can get expensive. And as James mentioned earlier, the challenge is how do we leverage and embrace and leverage the economies of scales of sharing some of that infrastructure that has been provided to us by government, as Vivian mentioned, and also Raxio. You know, so for our members, we need to put ourselves and take up the opportunities that have been given to us to collaborate and leverage the available country network infrastructure. For example, if you look at the services that Raxio is offering, they provide third-party services to Ugandan enterprises, you know, and so we need to take advantage of that in the way we do business. For example, connectivity services on behalf of other enterprises, we can actually be the third-party provider. James mentioned cloud services that we can take advantage of. And when you look at cloud services, in there lies things like software as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, backup storage as a service. These are all opportunities that our members and the community can take advantage of to grow to global network standards. We can also leverage disaster recovery, again from Raxio, cybersecurity and services using data. And basically content distribution, which, as you mentioned, Vivian, earlier, is very important. And we need to take advantage of the infrastructure that is available to us to be able to grow up to that level. Thank you.
Moses is from Ministry of Finance. Moses, a brief introduction of who you are, what you do, and also we want to get into the two questions that you could help us address, which is big data as a key pivotal element in the fourth industrial revolution. What is the strategy for Ministry of Finance has put in place for use of big data for effective budgeting and funding the economy? The other one is what measures are being put in place to ensure that public sector and the public service delivery is not crippled by the lockdown or the effects of future or current pandemics. Moses, over to you. Your mic is off. Can you turn on your mic?
Yeah, thank you very much, Henry. And I must apologize, I was absent almost half of the discussion. So I've not been able to benefit from the presentation from Raxio. Is it Raxio?
Raxio.
Raxio.
Yes.
But just to the point about big data, I'm not an expert in big data. I'm also kind of like learning what this means. But looking at what we are talking about, we're looking at the transition from mechanization, steel and power, mass production and electricity, electronic, IT, and into the what we are now calling the fourth industrial revolution. This fourth industrial revolution is nothing else other than really using big data to solve problems and to provide solutions. Someone mentioned the word digitization. I think that's the word automation and digitization. This fourth industrial revolution, as you know, it's basically automation of traditional systems, traditional ways of doing things, practices, using modern smart technology. It's machine to machine, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, but also there is a new innovation into what they are calling blockchain technology. So all these technologies that are coming on are important for our day-to-day living. They are important for our welfare. They're going to be important for business in terms of improved communication, improved efficiency, improved production, cost efficiency, but also accountability. Accountability in terms of ensuring that systems that are in place ensure that everyone who is involved is accountable and that the systems cannot be all that manipulated, they leave a trace and all those kind of things. Big data deal with extremely large data sets that are analyzed using computers to reveal patterns. They can be used for analyzing trends, associations relating to human behavior and interactions. It also supports learning and what we are now calling artificial intelligence, predictive modeling, for instance, forecasting weather in agriculture, for instance, and other advanced analysis applications. For government, there are so many applications that can be where this can be applied. For instance, we are talking about e-government, electronic government. In other words, e-taxation. We're moving into electronic government procurement. I think we're almost finalizing that. We're talking of e-commerce. And this has been extremely important in terms of innovation during the pandemic lockdown, where transportation of goods and ordering things and so on moved from physical transportation of trucks to online businesses, including delivery of food. You've seen people who are delivering food in the offices. All that has been enabled by e-commerce. And health, we are talking of e-health. We've been talking about e-education. I can say our children are struggling with online education. It's not efficient. The systems, the infrastructure is not yet well developed. I think that's why we need to put some emphasis to ensure that what we call e-government, e-procurement, e-commerce, e-health, e-education, e-taxation works seamlessly. So the infrastructure needs to be developed, the policies need to be enhanced, and also this comes with the cybersecurity issues. Big data can be used also in terms of equity, for instance, debt management, can be used for mobilizing financing, derivatives, title records, and also in the management of intellectual property. The applicability of automation using big data is really very, very, very significant. In terms of government, I've mentioned the medical area. In the medical research, it can be used to identify diseases, diagnose illnesses, but also in the medical field, it can be used to undertake online surgeries. For instance, I've had something like that. And also I mentioned the health records to track and manage infections. For instance, the COVID disease pandemic. In the oil sector, as we develop as we move towards the production of oil, the systems for managing oil production in terms of helping to identify locations, to pinpoint areas of trouble, managing electricity grids along, not only along the pipelines, but also around the country. All that requires this big data. And also can be used in terms of detecting, for instance, earthquakes, emergencies, landslides, and those kind of things. Back to the Ministry of Finance, as you know, we are trying to enhance our IFMIS, information management using data to improve efficiency in public sector management, public finance management. We are enhancing our capabilities in terms of macroeconomic modeling, which also requires a lot of data. But also, as I mentioned, e-taxation. When you look at the system that we have now, the URS CUDA requires some data. Some of the data that we use in taxation is actually not linked. And this big data and automation of systems and integration of data can actually help to bridge the gaps that exist between, for instance, income taxation, import duties, and also VAT and all those kind of things. So right now you find people who are importing and paying a lot of money as importation, but actually they don't pay income tax. And this is because the data is not integrated. So the systems are not there, and the infrastructure is still very, very remote. If I may move on in the interest of time to the other questions. Let me look at the other questions. You said, what are the measures being put in place to ensure the public sector and the public sector delivery is not crippled by lockdowns and effects of lockdown. I think government has done pretty well in terms of supporting the public sector, in terms of supporting the economy. The first one has been the response of government in the wake of the pandemic has been twofold, especially in the health sector. And this has been dealing with the emergency of the health pandemic in terms of controlling the pandemic, but also dealing with the medium to long-term recovery of the economy. Because without the economy growing, poverty will increase. Even financing health systems sustainably would be difficult. So the objectives of government in terms of ensuring public sector, public service delivery has been five objectives. We have 5 objectives: financing health-related expenditures in terms of strengthening health systems, including the purchase of whatever is required in order to deal with the pandemic, restoring household incomes and safeguarding jobs, and that has been very, very important in terms of safeguarding jobs, providing emergency social protection in terms of those who need, for instance, the food, for instance, those elderly, in terms of giving them cash transfers, providing tax relief to businesses, and also ensuring that the economy remains afloat. So I'll not go through the details of each of these because it takes a long time. But in terms of the topic that we are discussing, and in terms of the monetary policy measures, as you know, in order for the government to keep the financial sector running, the Bank of Uganda has been very active in terms of reducing the central bank rate. Right now has been reduced to about 6%. It has put in place the credit relief measures, extending credit relief measures to those who need it, and also providing a liquidity assistance program. But in terms of the supervision of the financial institutions, and in terms of leveraging automation, the Bank of Uganda has been very key in terms of advocating for e-payments. Right now, this can be enabled by the National Payment Systems Law, which is in place, that enables electronic transfer of money, and a lot of effort is being made to make sure that the regulations and the law that is in place is enabled to, in order to make sure that e-payments are safe and secure, and that there is innovation of fintechs in those areas. So it provides for sandboxes, which are areas of innovation in a controlled environment. And that will help in terms of advancing automation and innovation in the financial sector. I think that's what I wanted to contribute to in terms of.
Thank you, Moses. Yeah, no, that's very insightful, especially knowing that the ministry is working tirelessly to get all these platforms up and running. It's very insightful. Now we have about 7 or 8 minutes to go.
I just wanted to add something I had forgotten, is that we decided this week in terms of blockchain technology to look at what laws need to change, what regulatory framework that needs to be put in place. I think before we're dismissive of this kind of technology, but we know it's with us, And it can be applied in many, many, many areas, and not just cryptocurrency that people talk about all the time, but it can be used in many things, in procurement, in many, many other things. So the Ministry of Finance is going to be working with the central bank, Uganda Business Bankers Association, and the private sector and other stakeholders to make sure that we come up with a framework for advancing blockchain technology.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to find out if James maybe would like to answer just right away through the questions, if he has seen them, just in a few minutes before we go to wrap up.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, he's seen them. Yeah. So Vivian, over to you. James will go last and will help us to summarize it, most of the questions. Vivian?
Thank you very much, Henry. I realized that I hadn't answered one of your questions as to what government is, how has government managed to continue operating? But Moses has done a really great job in explaining what is happening in government. So I won't go down that road in detail, but basically we have seen a lot of unprecedented automation of government processes since this COVID pandemic started. We've seen this with the growth of the number of applications hosted at the National Data Centre. We have seen procurement going online, so you're not going to see any more of your documents getting lost. Government is now more and more having virtual meetings, and I don't see this going away. Zoom has become a doing word in government. There are still challenges, and still Moses talked about those, and most of those are to do with infrastructure. I said government has invested in quite a bit of infrastructure. 60% of internet service providers now use government infrastructure to provide internet to homes and business, but there's a lot that still needs to be done, and we are in plans to expand this infrastructure to all sub-counties within the next 3 years. So every sub-county in the country should be able to have infrastructure. This shall spur, yes, the growth of local content, the growth of e-commerce, and the automation of government processes. So there's quite a lot of work that is being done, and Moses has talked quite a lot about it, so I won't go into detail about it. But to wrap up, I would like to talk about what everybody has said. We need to. There's a lot more that needs to be done to ensure that going forward, and if another pandemic happens to us, that we are more prepared in terms of how do we get more services online, how do we get more people to work from home, how do we basically ensure that people can access services from wherever they are. And most of this has got to do with, yes, infrastructure, a lot of that, and we've seen that we've started on this journey, and we will not be the same people we are today in about 2 to 3 years. There's also a lot that needs to be done in the promotion of local content. That is something that we are also looking at. The ICTAU association is really also focused on this. Government is also focused on this, and the private sector is also focused on this. So yes, that's it from me, Henry.
Thank you, Vivian. Elizabeth?
Very quickly, thank you, Henry, and everybody, Raxio and AmCham, for giving us this opportunity. Just a quick one. As ICTAU, we are committed to a strategy to continuously educate our members and the public on how they can use ICT as a tool to leverage what is happening, especially in the current time, to leverage networks and infrastructure, especially in the current times. And we're doing it through a strategy that we developed at the beginning of this year, especially in the area of advocacy and building strategic partnerships with notable partners like NITA and UCC and the ministry and development partners and those kind of people that are really important in driving and reaching out to the public. And so at the end of this, our aim is to become the go-to organization or association as far as ICT issues are in Uganda. We also need to grow our influence of ICTU across Uganda and the region. And of course, our main aim is to partner with key stakeholders in the private and the public sector and the development partners in driving our vision and mission forward. So we are looking forward to that. And as Vivian said, in 2-3 years, this is going to be a completely different landscape. And we're up for the challenge and hoping for the best and a few companies to survive this roller coaster. Thank you so much, Henry.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Moses, briefly, before I invite James.
Yeah, very briefly.
Your summary.
Yes, very briefly. Yes, very briefly. We have the potential as a country. We need to work together. We shouldn't work in silos. Government needs the private sector needs the government. We need the NGOs. We need all the expertise to work together. I think we have the required expertise in the country. There are a few things that we may not be able to do, like sending a rocket to Mars or something like that. But much of the technology, the skills that we have is adequate to have a good start. And I think we need to work together. The potential, we have it here. Let's leverage it. Let's work together. Let's work in partnership. Let's collaborate. Let's network. Thank you.
Thanks, Moses. James, I know you're the last, but we have several questions here and we have already exceeded our time, but it's okay to go over a little bit. It's very important that our audience gets to hear some of the highlighted questions. However, what I was going to recommend is we shall follow up with more detailed answers to some of these questions. But if you can quickly highlight a few things in your summary, as well as touch points as we wrap up this morning's session.
All right, thanks. So I'll attempt to answer the questions. And obviously, based on the topic we had, I would be comfortable to want to leave something with the audience so that they don't come and leave feeling like what next? Like, I mean, we've had all these nice conversations, but what can I actually do today? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. So the first questions were really around the cloud side, and I think there was an interest to know a little bit more around, you know, what can the SME do today? What's practical today? What can I actually change in my way of doing things? But I don't think it's only the SMEs that need these answers. It's probably the enterprise as well. So when you really think through what is the actual journey that a business runs through, it's around finding the market that they're going to sell products or services, distributing these services and products to accounting for whatever has happened, including collection of the payments,